I went to my first life drawing class when I was 15. It was the first time I'd seen a woman naked. She slipped out of her robe and stepped up onto a raised platform to pose. Even then I noticed that she took her robe off before she stepped onto the platform. After all, this wasn't a strict tease. Nevertheless, there was a sexual tension in the air, as I and the other students, all men much older than me, tried not to gawp. But we quickly became embarrassed by our awe and started to fuss about getting our charcoal and paper together, choosing our angle from which to draw her, and pretty soon she became a problem of planes and shapes. Or so the teacher would have us believe. It's hard to get rid of millions of years of evolution entirely. Artists have drawn from the nude since the 15th century, without really questioning too deeply exactly why. Presumably it must be fulfilling some need. In my case, it was because I was unhappy at school, and my father, seeing me draw all the time, signed me up to the evening class thinking the experience might help me gain some self-confidence. I set to work, scratching with charcoal on a sheet of newsprint. After half an hour or so, the teacher gave the model a break, and loosely wrapped in her robe, she wandered round looking at the drawings to see what the students had made of her. Of course, I so much wanted her to like mine the most. My teacher that rainy winter evening was Philip Artisoni, son of the famous illustrator Edward Artisoni. What would he think of my work? He drew right over my first attempt, correcting as he went. The first lesson being that, despite what your mother said, your art is not as precious as you think. A few years later, when I knew him at my art school, he told me he was once asked to judge the drawings from the local girls' school for the O-level exam, and said they drew each other posing in bra and panties. He had, he said, an infallible criterion. The more detail the student put into the filigree shapes of the lacy bras, the worse the drawing. I remember nodding sagely, but couldn't get those lacy bras out of my head for weeks. As the class continued, I began to wonder at the motives of our model. Surely it couldn't be the idea that she's getting paid for doing essentially nothing. Though as anyone who has ever posed will tell you, it's hard work to remain still for minutes on end. A kind of exhibitionism, perhaps, or even a sort of altruistic urge to be part of art history. Much later, I discovered that everyone had different reasons. One model, whose face was disfigured from an accident, once told me that being stared at by strangers was part of her therapy. The class came to an end. We pinned our work up on the wall, and a glance at it quickly revealed the gap between the talented and the hopeful. But no matter, I felt. In its emphasis on self-improvement in quiet contemplation, so different from my school, I thought I glimpsed a way I could be truly a life class.